Discussion on verses 1 to 13 of 13. When Allah, the Exalted, addresses the believers in the Holy Quran, His call is frequently linked to the expectation that they demonstrate the truth of their verbal declaration of faith through consistent action. This is because a claim of belief, when unsupported by deeds, carries minimal weight in Islam. Actions function as the visible evidence of one's inner conviction, and form the basis upon which reward and mercy are granted in this life and the next. Just as a tree is only valued when it produces fruit, faith only holds real worth when it results in righteous conduct. In this context, Allah, the Exalted, commands the believers to distance themselves from harmful companionship. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 1.
O you who have believed, do not take my enemies and your enemies as allies, extending to them affection while they have disbelieved in what came to you of the truth, having driven out the Prophet and yourselves only because you believe in Allah your Lord. If you have come out in a state of striving in my cause and seeking means to my approval, take them not as friends. You confide to them affection, but I am most knowing of what you have concealed and what you have declared.
This verse does not forbid Muslims from forming friendships with non-Muslims. Instead, it refers specifically to the hostile non-Muslims during the era of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, who actively sought to harm Islam and destabilize the Muslim community. In that historical setting, forming close bonds with such individuals posed a genuine threat, as they could exploit their proximity to Muslims to gather information and weaken the community from within. The warning was therefore protective and context-specific, urging believers to avoid deep alliances with those whose intentions were openly antagonistic. The verse underscores that sincere faith cannot coexist with profound emotional loyalty to those who oppose Allah, the Exalted, and His Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, because such loyalty inevitably erodes one's commitment to divine guidance. More broadly, the Holy Quran clarifies that Allah, the Exalted, does not prohibit Muslims from treating non-Muslims with kindness, fairness, and respect. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 8.
Allah does not forbid you from those who do not fight you because of religion, and do not expel you from your homes, from being righteous toward them and acting justly toward them. Indeed, Allah loves those who act justly.
The true warning in the earlier verse concerns befriending individuals, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, who divert a person from sincere obedience to Allah, the Exalted. Companionship shapes character, influences behavior, and directs a person's priorities. As stated in a hadith found in Sunan Abu Dawood, number 4833, a person naturally follows the way of life of their close friend. This means that individuals inevitably absorb the habits, attitudes, and values of those they spend time with, even if they are unaware of the influence. For this reason, a Muslim must seek the company of those who encourage obedience to Allah, the Exalted, and who strengthen adherence to Islamic teachings. Blind loyalty to misguided individuals, regardless of their background, leads a person to adopt their errors, defend their behavior, and ultimately share in their consequences. Furthermore, treating all people, Muslims and non-Muslims, with kindness is a defining trait of genuine belief. A true believer refrains from causing harm, whether verbal or physical, and safeguards the rights, dignity, and property of others. This principle is emphasized in a hadith found in Sunan and Nasai, number 4998. Good character, fairness, and compassion must be extended universally, irrespective of a person's religion or background. However, it is essential to distinguish between courteous social interaction and deep, intimate friendship. Social kindness does not compromise one's faith, nor does it require adopting the values or behaviors of others. Deep friendship, however, inevitably influences the heart and shapes behavior. It may lead a person to compromise religious principles out of affection, loyalty, or fear of displeasing a companion. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 1.
And whoever does it among you has certainly strayed from the soundness of the way.
For this reason, Muslims are instructed to maintain good manners with everyone, but reserve deep, influential friendships for those who strengthen their faith and guide them toward obedience to Allah, the Exalted. Only a Muslim can fulfill this role for another Muslim, as they share the same moral framework, worldview, and ultimate purpose. A non-Muslim, even unintentionally, will encourage behavior aligned with their own worldview, a worldview that may conflict with Islamic teachings. What appears harmless or acceptable to them may be impermissible in Islam. Thus, while kindness and justice must be universal, deep loyalty must be reserved for those who help a person remain steadfast upon the path of Allah, the Exalted. This distinction protects the believer from subtle influences that may gradually weaken their faith and lead them away from righteousness. After the 8th year following the migration to Medina, when the leaders of the non-Muslims of Mecca violated their peace treaty with the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, Allah, the Exalted, commanded him to prepare for the conquest of Mecca. During these preparations, Hatib ibn Abu Baltah, may Allah be pleased with him, sent a woman with a letter to Mecca informing the non-Muslims that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was on his way. Allah, the Exalted, revealed this matter to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, who then dispatched Ali ibn Abu Talib, Miqdad ibn Amrah, and Zubair ibn al-Awwam, may Allah be pleased with them, to intercept the messenger and retrieve the letter before it reached its destination. Their mission succeeded, and the letter was brought back to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. He summoned Hatib, may Allah be pleased with him, and questioned him regarding his actions. Hatib, may Allah be pleased with him, explained that he had not abandoned Islam nor preferred disbelief, but acted out of fear for his family and property in Mecca, believing that the letter might secure their safety. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, affirmed the truthfulness of his explanation. Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, sought permission to execute Hatib for treason, but the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, reminded him that Hatib had participated in the Battle of Badr, and Allah the Exalted had already forgiven the participants of that battle. This incident is recorded in Imam Ibn Kathir's The Life of the Prophet, Volume 3, page 379, and in a hadith found in Sahih Bukhari, number 3007. In connection with this event, Allah the Exalted revealed chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 1.
O you who have believed, do not take my enemies and your enemies as allies, extending to them affection while they have disbelieved in what came to you of the truth, having driven out the Prophet and yourselves only because you believe in Allah your Lord. If you have come out for fighting, striving in my cause and seeking means to my approval, take them not as friends. You confide to them affection, i.e. instruction, but I am most knowing of what you have concealed and what you have declared. And whoever does it among you has certainly strayed from the soundness of the way.
This has been discussed in Imam Muhammad as-Salabi's The Noble Life of the Prophet, Volume 1, pages 1684 to 1685. Although Hatib's intention, may Allah be pleased with him, was not malicious, he sought only to protect his family and property, and he knew that his letter would not alter the outcome of the conquest, since the non-Muslims of Mecca already anticipated it. He nevertheless should have remained fully sincere to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and entrusted his family and wealth to Allah, the Exalted. Instead of punishing him for this single lapse, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, considered Hatib's lifetime of sacrifice and devotion and therefore pardoned him. The first lesson to draw from this event is that a person must remain steadfast in obeying Allah, the Exalted, even when obedience may result in personal loss, such as the loss of wealth or security. It is in these moments that the true strength of one's faith is revealed. Remaining obedient during times of ease is simple. The real test lies in maintaining obedience during hardship and uncertainty. Thus, a person must support their verbal declaration of faith with consistent action in both favorable and difficult circumstances. This requires using the blessings granted by Allah, the Exalted, in the manner prescribed by Islamic teachings. To achieve this, one must strive to develop certainty of faith, which strengthens the heart and enables steadfastness in all situations. Certainty is attained by learning and acting upon the clear proofs found in the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, which demonstrate that sincere obedience leads to peace of mind in both worlds. Conversely, those who remain ignorant of Islamic teachings possess weak faith and easily fall into disobedience whenever their desires conflict with divine guidance. They fail to recognize that abandoning their desires for the sake of Allah, the Exalted, is the path to true tranquility. Therefore, a person must pursue certainty of faith through knowledge and practice, so that they remain firm in obedience at all times. This will grant them peace in both worlds, by fostering a balanced mental and physical state, and enabling them to place every person and blessing in its proper place. Additionally, this event teaches that a person's good deeds are not erased by a single sin. Sadly, many Muslims expect others to behave flawlessly, and when someone makes a mistake, they are quick to condemn them and forget the good they have done. This attitude is misguided, for Allah, the Exalted, does not demand perfection, nor does He disregard a person's lifetime of good deeds because of a single error. Although sins can destroy good deeds, this matter is hidden from people, and therefore they must not dismiss the good others have done, even if they commit sins. Allah, the Exalted, alone knows the true weight of a person's actions and the consequences they carry, and He alone will judge them in this world and the next. A Muslim should instead encourage others to repent when they fall into sin, and motivate them to increase their good deeds. This approach is far more effective in inspiring repentance and reform than harsh criticism or condemnation. Allah, the Exalted, then cautions the believers about another subtle yet dangerous form of companionship, relationships that are formed not out of sincerity, affection, or shared values, but purely for personal advantage. These are alliances built on convenience, where the underlying intention is to gain leverage, influence, or control over others. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 2.
If they gain dominance over you, they would be to you as enemies and extend against you their hands and their tongues with evil, and they wish you would disbelieve.
This verse exposes a type of individual who presents a facade of warmth and friendliness while concealing deep hostility. Such a person seeks closeness not because they value the relationship, but because they view it as a strategic opportunity. Their outward politeness masks an inner desire to manipulate circumstances, exploit vulnerabilities, and ultimately harm those they pretend to support. Their friendliness is merely a calculated tool, and once they gain the upper hand, their true nature becomes visible through harmful speech, harmful actions, and even attempts to push others away from their faith, since sincere faith obstructs their worldly ambitions and self-serving goals. This behavior is frequently observed among individuals who pursue influence, authority, or public recognition. Those who operate within political environments often cultivate relationships not out of genuine goodwill, but as part of a broader strategy to secure power, gather support, or manipulate public perception. Their alliances shift rapidly depending on personal benefit, and their loyalty is shallow, conditional, and easily abandoned. They may present themselves as allies, yet their underlying aim is dominance, not sincerity. The Holy Quran warns believers to be cautious of such companionship, for it is rooted in self-interest rather than truth, integrity, or mutual benefit. This pattern is not limited to politics. It can be seen in workplaces, where certain colleagues befriend others only to gain access to information, secure promotions, or undermine competitors. It appears in business partnerships, where individuals feign trustworthiness to gain financial advantage or exploit the resources of others. It is found in social circles, where some people attach themselves to those with wealth, status, or influence, not because they value the person, but because they desire the benefits associated with them. Even within families, individuals may sometimes display affection only when they expect material gain or personal advantage. In all these cases, the relationship is transactional, not genuine. The moment the perceived benefit disappears, the friendliness evaporates, and hostility or indifference takes its place. The Holy Quran warns believers to recognize such patterns and avoid placing their trust in those whose intentions are rooted in self-interest. True companionship is built on sincerity, loyalty, and shared commitment to righteousness, not on manipulation or opportunism. Allah, the Exalted, further cautions all people against placing their loyalty to relatives above their loyalty to Him, for such misplaced devotion inevitably leads to the misuse of the blessings they have been granted. When individuals prioritize family ties over divine guidance, they begin to justify actions that contradict Islamic teachings, believing that emotional attachment excuses disobedience. This attitude prevents them from attaining a balanced mental and physical state, as it distorts their perception of right and wrong and causes them to misplace everything and everyone within their lives. As a result, every aspect of their existence, family, friendships, career, and wealth, gradually becomes a source of stress rather than comfort. If they persist in disobeying Allah, the Exalted, they eventually begin to blame the wrong people and circumstances for their distress, directing frustration toward innocent individuals such as their spouse or close relatives. When they sever ties with those who genuinely care for them, their inner turmoil intensifies, leading to emotional instability. This downward spiral often results in severe psychological consequences, including depression, addiction, and even suicidal tendencies. This outcome is evident when observing those who continually misuse their blessings, such as the wealthy and famous, who, despite possessing worldly luxuries, frequently struggle with inner emptiness and instability. And because their misplaced loyalty prevents them from preparing for their accountability on the Day of Judgment, their punishment in the hereafter will be far more severe. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 3.
Never will your relatives or your children benefit you. The day of resurrection He will judge between you. And Allah of what you do is seeing.
It is essential for people to recognize that the teachings of Islam do not instruct individuals to abandon their relatives, for maintaining family bonds is a fundamental moral principle. Rather, these teachings guide a person to place every individual in the correct position within their life. This means fulfilling the rights of relatives without exceeding proper limits. Limits defined by the commands of Allah, the Exalted, and the established traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Unfortunately, some individuals allow their affection for family members to overshadow their greater responsibilities, neglecting more important duties out of misplaced loyalty. This leads them to misuse the blessings they have been granted. In some cases, individuals even pursue unlawful income or commit wrongdoing solely to satisfy or impress their relatives. The consequences of such behavior are clearly illustrated in divine guidance. A person is required to support others, especially relatives, in what is good, but never in wrongdoing, regardless of how close the relationship may be. There is no obedience to any created being if it results in disobedience to Allah, the Exalted. Chapter 5 Al-Ma'idah, verse 2.
And cooperate in righteousness and piety, but do not cooperate in sin and aggression.
Furthermore, this profound warning concerns relationships between individuals who, in most cases, share a deeper emotional bond than the bond one has with friends. If this is the outcome for relatives on the Day of Judgment, when misplaced loyalty leads to regret and separation, then the outcome for misguided friendships is even more severe. Chapter 25 Al-Furqan, verse 28.
Oh, woe to me! I wish I had not taken that one as a friend.
The only way people can truly benefit one another, whether in this world or the next, is when they collectively prioritize obedience to Allah, the Exalted. This obedience involves using the blessings they have been granted in ways that please Him. As outlined in the Holy Quran and the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. When individuals support each other in this ultimate goal, their companionship becomes a source of strength, clarity, and lasting benefit. Without this shared commitment, even the closest relationships become a cause of regret. Chapter 43 Az-Zukhruf, verse 67.
Close friends that day will be enemies to each other except for the righteous.
In order to illustrate the tension that naturally arises between those who remain steadfast in obeying Allah, the Exalted, and those who persist in pursuing their worldly desires and ambitions, Allah, the Exalted, presents an example from the past. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 4.
There has already been for you an excellent pattern in Abraham and those with him, when they said to their people, "Indeed, we are disassociated from you, and from whatever you worship other than Allah. We have denied you."
This example highlights a universal reality. When a person chooses a path grounded in discipline, restraint, and obedience to divine guidance, it often exposes the insecurities of those who prioritize their desires over moral principles. As a result, feelings of discomfort or inadequacy may arise in others, leading them to criticize or oppose the one who has chosen a higher path. This opposition frequently comes from those closest to a person, including family members, who may feel threatened by the contrast between their own choices and the principled conduct of the one who follows divine guidance. In addition, modern societal pressures, such as social media trends, fashion industries, and cultural expectations, often intensify this tension. These influences frequently promote values centered on materialism, self-indulgence, and public image, viewing any form of religious discipline as an obstacle to personal ambition. Industries whose practices conflict with Islamic principles often resist the presence of religious values, as such values challenge their profit-driven agendas. This resistance fuels widespread negative portrayals of Islam across various platforms, particularly social media, where hostility toward Islamic teachings is often amplified. Those who strive to live according to Islamic principles that call for moderation, self-control, and responsible use of blessings, are often met with criticism from individuals who indulge in excess and act on impulse without restraint. Such behavior, which Islam describes as resembling the instincts of animals, leads these individuals to discourage others from embracing Islam or from practicing it sincerely. They attempt to entice people into a lifestyle driven by unchecked desires. One of their common tactics is to target specific Islamic teachings, such as the dress code for women, in an attempt to undermine the appeal of Islam. Yet, perceptive individuals easily recognize the superficiality of these objections. For example, critics rarely question the strict dress codes required in professions such as law enforcement, the military, healthcare, education, or corporate environments. Their selective criticism of Islamic modesty, while ignoring similar expectations in other fields, exposes the weakness and inconsistency of their arguments. Ultimately, it is the moral discipline promoted by Islam and the conduct of those who embody it that provokes such hostility, leading critics to attack Islam in any way they can. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 4.
And there has appeared between us and you animosity and hatred, forever until you believe in Allah alone.
However, despite the hostility that emerges when obedience to Allah, the Exalted, conflicts with the pursuit of worldly desires, a person must not respond with hatred or cruelty. Instead, they are instructed to maintain a merciful and compassionate attitude, hoping that those who oppose them may eventually repent and reform. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 4.
Except for the saying of Abraham to his father, I will surely ask forgiveness for you, but I have not power to do for you anything against Allah.
This statement was made while the father of the Holy Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, was still alive, demonstrating that a person must never lose hope in the possibility of another's transformation. No matter how severe someone's past actions or hostility toward divine guidance may be, every individual retains the potential to change for the better as long as they live. Therefore, a person must never treat others harshly under the assumption that their fate is sealed. History clearly shows that even the fiercest opponents of truth can become its most devoted supporters, just as many of the companions, may Allah be pleased with them, once opposed the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, before eventually embracing Islam with sincerity and becoming among its greatest defenders. During the opposition and criticism one faces from others, they must unwaveringly commit themselves to the sincere obedience of Allah, the Exalted, recognizing that such dedication will grant them serenity and protect them from the negative influences of others, even if this protection is not immediately visible. Their loyalty to Allah, the Exalted, will ensure that they make proper use of the blessings granted to them. This practice will aid them in achieving a harmonious mental and physical state, allowing them to effectively organize all elements and individuals in their lives, while also preparing for their accountability on the Day of Judgment. Consequently, this behavior will foster tranquility in both worlds. As a result, they will be rightly guided through every situation they face, whether in times of ease or difficulty, thus enhancing their peace of mind and guaranteeing they receive boundless rewards in both worlds. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 4.
Our Lord, upon you we have relied, and to you we have returned, and to you is the destination.
Remaining firm in obeying Allah, the Exalted, is also essential for another profound reason. It serves as a living testimony to the truthfulness of Islam. Every person who claims adherence to divine guidance carries the responsibility of demonstrating its truth through consistent conduct. When individuals display signs of weakness in their commitment, especially during moments of hardship, it can unintentionally mislead others. Observers may wrongly assume that Islam lacks strength or authenticity, because its followers appear quick to abandon obedience when faced with difficulty. Such behavior can become a trial for others, pushing them further from the truth rather than drawing them toward it. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 5.
Our Lord, make us not a trial for the disbelievers.
This supplication reflects a profound awareness that a person's conduct can either draw others toward the truth or push them away from it. An individual who remains steadfast during hardship becomes a clear example of the strength, stability, and purpose that divine guidance provides. Their perseverance demonstrates that obedience to Allah, the Exalted, is not dependent on favorable circumstances, but is rooted in conviction. In contrast, a person who abandons obedience when faced with difficulty may unintentionally strengthen the false assumption that worldly desires offer greater comfort or security than adherence to divine commands. For this reason, steadfastness is not merely a personal virtue. It is a responsibility that affects the spiritual journey of others, ensuring that one's behavior never becomes an obstacle to their guidance. To maintain such a resolute mindset, a person must actively cultivate a strong and informed faith. A firm faith is essential for remaining devoted to the obedience of Allah, the Exalted, in all circumstances, whether in times of ease or adversity. This strength of faith is developed through understanding and applying the clear signs and teachings found in the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. These teachings consistently show that true obedience to Allah, the Exalted, brings tranquility in this life and lasting success in the hereafter. Conversely, those who lack knowledge of Islamic principles possess a fragile faith, making them more susceptible to abandoning obedience when their personal desires conflict with divine guidance. This lack of understanding obscures the reality that surrendering one's desires in favor of divine commands is the only path to genuine peace in both worlds. Therefore, it is vital for individuals to strengthen their faith through the pursuit of Islamic knowledge and its practical application. This ensures that they remain obedient to Allah, the Exalted, at all times by using the blessings they have been granted in accordance with Islamic teachings. Through this approach, they cultivate a balanced mental and physical state and correctly prioritize every aspect of their lives. The remainder of the supplication makes it clear that Allah, the Exalted, does not demand flawlessness from people, nor does He expect them to live without ever falling short. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 5.
And forgive us, our Lord. Indeed, it is you who is the Exalted in might, the wise.
This verse highlights a fundamental principle. Allah, the Exalted, does not require a life free from mistakes, but a life characterized by sincere effort. What He expects is that a person uses the blessings they have been granted in accordance with Islamic teachings, strives to obey Him to the best of their ability, and returns to Him in repentance whenever they commit a sin. The true danger lies not in committing an error, but in persisting in wrongdoing without remorse, reflection, or the intention to reform. When a person adopts an attitude of sincere striving and regular repentance, Allah, the Exalted, promises forgiveness, mercy, and inner tranquility. Such individuals experience peace of mind in this world, and carry hope for salvation in the next, because they live with humility, self-awareness, and a heart that continually turns back to its Lord. As the Holy Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, and those who believed with him supported their verbal declaration of faith through decisive action, placing obedience to Allah, the Exalted, above every other loyalty. Every person who claims belief in Allah, the Exalted, and in their accountability before Him is being invited to follow this same pattern. Their example stands as a timeless model for anyone who hopes for the mercy of Allah, the Exalted, and success on the last day. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 6.
There has certainly been for you in them an excellent pattern for anyone whose hope is in Allah and the last day.
This verse makes it clear that verbal claims alone are insufficient. A person must demonstrate the truthfulness of their claim through consistent obedience and principled conduct. However, if a person fails to support their verbal declaration of faith with action, they ultimately harm only themselves. Their neglect does not diminish the majesty of Allah, the Exalted, in the slightest, for He is entirely independent of His creation. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 6.
And whoever turns away, then indeed, Allah is the free of need, the praiseworthy.
In this world, such a person's attitude prevents them from achieving a balanced mental and physical state. Their priorities become distorted, causing them to misplace everything and everyone within their life. As a result, their family, friendships, career and wealth, blessings meant to bring comfort, become sources of stress and turmoil. If they persist in disobedience, they begin to blame the wrong people and circumstances for their distress, directing frustration toward innocent individuals such as their spouse or relatives. When they sever ties with those who genuinely care for them, their inner instability intensifies, often leading to depression, addiction, and even suicidal tendencies. This pattern is evident when observing those who continually misuse their blessings, such as the wealthy and famous, who, despite possessing worldly luxuries, frequently struggle with inner emptiness and psychological instability. And because their attitude prevents them from preparing for their accountability on the Day of Judgment, their punishment in the hereafter will be far more severe. It is vital to understand that in this world, a person is legally recognized as a Muslim based on their verbal declaration of faith. However, in the hereafter, each individual will be judged by Allah, the Exalted, according to their inward reality, something hidden from all other people. Therefore, a person who verbally claims belief in Allah, the Exalted, and in the Last Day, yet fails to support this claim with action, may possess no real faith in their heart. As a result, they may be treated as a non-believer on the Day of Judgment, even if the law considered them a Muslim in this world. This distinction underscores the seriousness of aligning outward claims with inward sincerity and consistent obedience. Furthermore, the one who fails to support their verbal declaration of faith with action is in grave danger of losing their faith before death. Faith may be likened to a delicate flame that requires constant tending. Just as a fire weakens and eventually dies when deprived of fuel, faith diminishes and may be extinguished, if not sustained through regular acts of obedience. Neglecting this spiritual nourishment places a person at risk of losing the very light that guides them. Such a loss is the most devastating of all, for it deprives a person of peace in this world and salvation in the next. As discussed earlier, when a person maintains good conduct toward those who oppose or criticize their obedience to Allah, the Exalted, they act as a living example of the principles and values of Islam. Such conduct reflects patience, integrity, and moral strength, demonstrating the true character of a person guided by the teachings of Islam. By responding to hostility or criticism with fairness, respect, and kindness, the person provides a clear contrast to the negativity or misconceptions held by others. This approach can influence the hearts and minds of those who were previously hostile. Observing consistent good conduct may lead them to recognize the positive aspects of Islam and the noble qualities it encourages in its followers. Over time, this may foster reflection, reduce prejudice, and even guide some toward reformation, as their initial misconceptions are replaced with understanding and respect. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 7.
Perhaps Allah will put between you and those to whom you have been enemies among them affection. And Allah is competent, and Allah is forgiving and merciful.
This discussion is further reinforced by the following verse, in which Allah, the Exalted, clarifies that He expects people to treat others with respect, fairness, and mercy, yet without allowing any relationship to draw them toward disobedience. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 8.
Allah does not forbid you from those who do not fight you because of religion, and do not expel you from your homes, from being righteous toward them and acting justly toward them.
This verse establishes a balanced principle. While Islam permits self-defense and the protection of one's rights, it simultaneously commands good manners, justice, and compassion toward all people. In a hadith found in Sunan an-Nasai, number 4998, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, described the qualities of a true Muslim and a true believer. A true Muslim is one from whose tongue and hands others are safe. This teaching applies universally, regardless of a person's faith or background. It encompasses all forms of speech and behavior that may cause harm or distress. This includes withholding sincere advice, which contradicts the principle of goodwill toward others, as commanded in a hadith found in Sunan and Nasai, number 4204. It also includes encouraging others to disobey Allah, the Exalted, thereby inviting them towards sin. A person must avoid this behavior, for they will be held accountable for every individual who acts upon their harmful advice, as warned in a hadith found in Sahih Muslim, number 2351. Additionally, it includes refraining from interfering in matters that do not concern them, as such interference often leads to unnecessary harm. A person should speak well of others, both in their presence and absence, just as they would wish others to speak well of them. Physical harm is equally prohibited. This includes damaging another person's livelihood, committing fraud, deceiving others, or engaging in any form of physical abuse. All such behaviors contradict Islamic teachings and must be avoided entirely. A true believer, according to the same hadith, is one who safeguards the lives and property of others. This principle, again, applies to all people irrespective of their faith. It includes refraining from stealing, misusing, or damaging the belongings of others. Whenever a person is entrusted with someone else's property, they must ensure that they use it only with the owner's permission, and in a manner that is pleasing and acceptable to them. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, warned in a hadith found in Sunan and Nasai, number 5421, that anyone who unlawfully takes another's property through a false oath, even if it is as insignificant as a twig, will face punishment in hell. In conclusion, a person must support their verbal declaration of belief with consistent action, for actions are the tangible proof of one's faith and the means to success in both worlds. Furthermore, a person should embody the qualities of true belief in their relationship with Allah, the Exalted, and in their dealings with people. One of the most effective ways to achieve this in relation to others is to treat them in the same manner they wish to be treated themselves, with respect, fairness, and peace. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 8.
Indeed, Allah loves those who act justly.
As Islam is a religion founded upon balance and moderation, Allah, the Exalted, warns people against forming close bonds with those who may misguide them, whether that misguidance is deliberate or unintentional. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 9.
Allah only forbids you from those who fight you because of religion, and expel you from your homes and aid in your expulsion forbids that you make allies of them.
Although this verse specifically addresses alliances with those who are openly hostile, the underlying principle extends further. A person must be cautious of any companionship that negatively influences their beliefs, values, or conduct. Human beings are inherently social, and their character, habits, and worldview are shaped, often profoundly, by the company they keep. This influence may be immediate or gradual, obvious or subtle, but it is always transformative. Companionship is never neutral. It is a powerful force that molds one's inner state and outward behavior. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, affirmed this universal truth in a hadith found in Sunan Abu Dawood, number 4833, which emphasizes the deep impact companions have on one's spiritual and moral condition. A person naturally absorbs the attitudes, mannerisms, and priorities of those they spend time with, just as one who enters a perfumer's shop leaves with its fragrance, while one who stands near a blacksmith becomes tainted by its smoke. For this reason, those who surround themselves with sincere, righteous, and principled individuals find their own hearts inclined towards sincerity, humility, and obedience to Allah, the Exalted. Such companions remind them of their responsibilities, encourage them to use their blessings correctly, and inspire them to prepare for their accountability on the Day of Judgment. In this environment, a person's heart is uplifted, their intentions purified, and their conduct refined. They learn balance, spiritually, mentally, and physically, and are guided toward a life of clarity, purpose, and contentment. Conversely, those who choose the company of the heedless and misguided inevitably begin to reflect their attitudes and behavior. The decline may begin subtly, but over time it erodes spiritual awareness and weakens one's connection with Allah, the Exalted. Such individuals become increasingly driven by their desires, misuse the blessings granted to them, and neglect their ultimate purpose. This spiritual corrosion distorts their understanding of right and wrong, causing them to misplace priorities, misuse relationships, and lose harmony within their lives. When a person replaces obedience to Allah, the Exalted, with the pursuit of fleeting pleasures and misguided ideals, their heart becomes unsettled. No amount of material comfort can fill the emptiness created by spiritual neglect. Outwardly, they may appear successful or content, but inwardly they suffer from anxiety, instability, and dissatisfaction. Their relationships deteriorate, their minds become troubled, and their hearts grow heavy with guilt and regret. Thus, the consequences of poor companionship extend far beyond this world. They lead to confusion, despair, and moral decline in this life, and spiritual ruin in the next. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 9.
And whoever makes allies of them, then it is those who are the wrongdoers.
In contrast, righteous companionship nurtures inner peace, strengthens faith, and prepares a person for eternal success. For this reason, a wise individual is always selective in their friendships, seeking the company of those who remind them of Allah, the Exalted, and whose character motivates them to walk the path of truth and virtue. After the migration of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and the majority of his companions, may Allah be pleased with them, to Medina, a number of female companions also began to undertake the journey. This became especially common after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, agreed upon in the 6th year after the migration, which established a temporary peace between the non-Muslims of Mecca and the Muslims of Medina. Although migration was an obligation for men, it was not required of women. Therefore, when women chose to make this sacrifice voluntarily, they were granted a special distinction. Their situation was addressed directly in the Holy Quran, and the community of Medina was instructed to support them fully, but only after it was confirmed that their migration was motivated by faith and not by worldly disputes, such as a temporary disagreement with their husbands. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 10.
O you who have believed, when the believing women come to you as emigrants, examine them. Allah is most knowing as to their faith. And if you know them to be believers, then do not return them to the disbelievers. They are not lawful wives for them, nor are they lawful husbands for them. But give the disbelievers what they have spent. And there is no blame upon you if you marry them, when you have given them their due compensation.
It is important to note that their faith itself was not in question, for Allah, the Exalted, refers to them as believing women at the very beginning of the verse. The purpose of the examination was not to doubt their sincerity, but to ensure that their migration was undertaken for the correct reason. This scrutiny was specific to women because migration was not obligatory for them, and because women, both historically and in the present, may temporarily leave their husbands' homes due to personal disputes, such as spending a night with their parents after an argument. Men, by contrast, do not typically behave in this manner. Thus, the examination consisted of a few simple questions regarding their motives. Once they affirmed that they migrated for the sake of Allah, the Exalted, and to join the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, the community was instructed to support them wholeheartedly. In general, this highlights the broader principle that people are expected to support one another according to their individual capacity. Islam is not a way of life that encourages isolation, self-interest, or a narrow focus on one's personal comfort or the well-being of one's immediate family. Even animals instinctively protect only themselves and their offspring. Rather, Islam elevates human conduct by commanding people to recognize and fulfill the rights of all individuals, regardless of their faith, background, or social standing. This includes offering assistance in whatever form one is able to provide, whether financial help, emotional support, practical aid, or simply a kind word that uplifts another person. This ethic of mutual care ensures that a person not only attains inner tranquility by obeying Allah, the Exalted, but also learns to use the blessings they have been granted in the manner prescribed by Islamic teachings. Through this, they cultivate a balanced mental and physical state, placing every blessing and every relationship in its rightful place. At the same time, this attitude strengthens the fabric of society. When individuals fulfill the rights of others and extend support beyond their own circle, peace, justice, and compassion naturally spread throughout the community. Such behavior transforms society into one where people feel valued, protected, and connected, reflecting the higher moral purpose that Islam seeks to instill in all who follow its guidance. Initially, a Muslim was permitted to remain married to a non-Muslim spouse in order to ease their transition into Islam. Immediately severing marital ties would have created emotional hardship and social instability for new Muslims, making their early steps in faith more difficult. In addition, allowing the marriage to continue served as an opportunity for the non-Muslim spouse to witness the moral transformation that Islam brings, an honest, lived demonstration of its truthfulness. However, as the long-term negative consequences of such unions outweighed the potential benefits, Muslims were eventually commanded to separate from their non-Muslim spouses. Marriage to them was no longer lawful, with the exception, introduced near the end of the prophetic mission, of Muslim men marrying devout, chaste, and practicing women from the people of the book. Chapter 5 Al-Ma'idah, verse 5.
And lawful in marriage are chaste women from among the believers, and chaste women from among those who were given the scripture before you, when you have given them their due compensation, desiring chastity, not unlawful relationships or taking secret lovers.
Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 10.
And hold not marriage bonds with disbelieving women, but ask for what you have spent and let them ask for what they have spent. That is the judgment of Allah, He judges between you.
For a society to achieve stability, justice and peace, its foundational unit, the family home, must first embody these qualities. Since stable homes begin with stable marriages, Allah, the Exalted, frequently addresses marital matters, including divorce, within the Holy Quran. In this verse, the importance of choosing a suitable spouse, the first and most decisive step toward a peaceful family life, is emphasized. Generally speaking, the verse indirectly encourages Muslims to choose their spouse wisely, as this decision has one of the greatest impacts on the family unit. A righteous spouse encourages those around them, such as their partner and children, to sincerely obey Allah, the Exalted, by using the blessings they have been granted in ways pleasing to Him, as outlined in the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. This, in turn, ensures that the household attains peace of mind, even during times of hardship, by cultivating a balanced mental and physical state, and by placing every blessing and every relationship in its proper place. For example, a righteous spouse will encourage patience during financial difficulty, gratitude during times of ease, and unity during moments of family tension. They will model good character, such as honesty, humility, and generosity, which naturally shapes the behavior of their children. Their presence becomes a source of emotional stability, moral clarity, and spiritual growth for the entire household. By contrast, a spouse who does not believe in Allah, the Exalted, nor act upon faith, will inevitably influence those around them, directly or indirectly, intentionally or unintentionally, to misuse the blessings they have been granted. This leads to an unbalanced mental and physical state, misplaced priorities, and a failure to prepare adequately for the day of judgment. Such a household becomes a place of stress and difficulty in both worlds, even if outwardly it enjoys certain worldly comforts. For instance, a spouse who prioritizes material gain over spiritual well-being may pressure their partner into unlawful financial practices, excessive spending, or a lifestyle centered on showing off. A spouse who lacks moral discipline may normalize harmful habits, such as backbiting, dishonesty, or uncontrolled anger, until these behaviors become part of the household culture. Children raised in such an environment often grow up confused, insecure, or rebellious, as they witness contradictions between moral teachings and lived behavior. Even if the home appears successful from the outside, internally it becomes a place of emotional instability, resentment, and spiritual emptiness. With regard to marriage, achieving peace of mind within the home therefore begins with choosing the correct spouse, one who uses their blessings in ways pleasing to Allah, the Exalted, and encourages others to do the same. This principle is reinforced by the hadith of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, found in Sahih Bukhari, number 5090. He taught that people marry for 4 reasons: wealth, lineage, beauty, or piety. He then advised that a Muslim should prioritize piety, otherwise they will be a loser. Piety means sincerely obeying Allah, the Exalted, as outlined in Islamic teachings. Although wealth, lineage, and beauty may be considered, they must never be the primary motivation for marriage. This guidance is timeless. Many marriages collapse because they were built on superficial qualities that fade with time. Wealth can disappear, beauty changes, and lineage offers no guarantee of good character. But piety, manifested through kindness, patience, responsibility, and God consciousness, remains a stable foundation throughout the ups and downs of life. A pious spouse will support their partner emotionally, remind them of their duties, and help them navigate challenges with wisdom and compassion. For those who lack Islamic knowledge, piety may not appear to be an important quality in a spouse. Yet it is the only quality that guarantees a spouse will fulfill their rights and the rights of others, such as their children. For example, the one who fears Allah, the Exalted, will not harm their spouse verbally or physically. They will not betray trust, neglect responsibilities, or allow anger to destroy the home. They will treat their spouse with dignity, raise their children with care, and uphold justice even when it is difficult. By contrast, the one who lacks piety will easily transgress against others, including their spouse and children. Marrying individuals who lack piety is one of the primary reasons domestic violence has increased within Muslim households. Moreover, choosing the wrong spouse increases stress, as such a spouse is unlikely to be a good parent. Poor parenting further destabilizes the home, leading to greater hardship and emotional turmoil. A person who has an unsuitable spouse and poorly raised children is far less likely to find peace of mind within their home. Real-life examples are abundant. Children raised in spiritually negligent homes often struggle with identity, discipline, and emotional resilience, while spouses in such marriages frequently experience loneliness, conflict, and regret. Furthermore, the qualities mentioned in the hadith, wealth, beauty, and lineage, may please a person initially, but they are outward forms of attraction. They do not encourage obedience to Allah, the Exalted, nor do they ensure that a spouse will fulfill the rights of their family. The difference between these qualities and piety is similar to the difference between unhealthy and healthy food. Unhealthy food is more appealing and pleasurable, yet it leads to physical and mental harm. Healthy food may not be as immediately attractive, yet it nourishes the body and supports long-term well-being. Likewise, piety may not be the most glamorous quality, but it is the only one that leads to a stable, peaceful, and spiritually healthy home. A spouse chosen for beauty may become a source of jealousy or insecurity. A spouse chosen for wealth may become arrogant or controlling. A spouse chosen for lineage may rely on family status rather than personal character. But a spouse chosen for piety will remain consistent, principled, and supportive regardless of changing circumstances. In addition, marriage is a relationship with deep social, moral, and emotional implications. A marriage between a Muslim and a non-Muslim carries multiple possible outcomes. On one hand, the influence of the Muslim spouse may lead the non-Muslim partner, their family, and future generations to become receptive to Islamic beliefs and values. There are historical examples of non-Muslim spouses who embraced Islam after witnessing the honesty, patience, and compassion of their believing partner. On the other hand, the non-Muslim spouse, especially one who practices polytheism, may influence the Muslim spouse, their family, and future generations toward incorrect beliefs and practices. This influence may begin subtly, celebrating non-Islamic festivals, adopting non-Islamic customs, or normalizing beliefs that contradict Islamic teachings. Over time, these practices can reshape the identity of the household. Such a relationship may also lead to a blending of religions within the home. While this may be acceptable to a non-Muslim, it is not acceptable in Islam. No sincere Muslim can risk allowing ideas or lifestyles rooted in atheism or polytheism to take root within their family, nor can they risk contaminating their own faith with beliefs or practices influenced by a polytheist spouse. If one observes Muslims today, it becomes clear that many have adopted non-Islamic practices and beliefs simply through the influence of non-Muslim friends and neighbors. Some adopt non-Islamic wedding customs, financial practices, or social behaviors because they see them normalized in their surroundings. Others begin to compromise on modesty, prayer, or moral boundaries due to peer pressure. If such influence occurs through casual relationships, one can easily imagine the far greater impact of a polytheist spouse, someone with whom one shares daily life, emotional intimacy, and long-term commitment. The spouse becomes the most powerful influence in shaping values, habits, and worldview. Therefore, choosing a spouse who strengthens one's faith rather than weakens it is essential for the stability of the home, the well-being of future generations, and the preservation of one's relationship with Allah the Exalted. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 10.
And Allah is knowing and wise.
Even though there was clear hostility between the Muslims and the non-Muslims, especially those residing in Mecca, Allah the Exalted still commanded that justice be upheld. This included returning any wealth that had been taken from a non-Muslim spouse, and reclaiming what had been spent on them. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 10.
But ask for what you have spent, and let them ask for what they have spent. That is the judgment of Allah, He judges between you.
This command demonstrates that justice in Islam is not dependent on emotions, political tensions, or personal grievances. Even in times of conflict, when hostility is at its peak, and when people are most inclined to act unjustly, Allah the Exalted requires fairness, transparency, and the protection of rights. This principle is not theoretical. It is practical and far-reaching. For example, a Muslim could not withhold a dowry simply because their spouse belonged to a hostile group. Nor could they exploit the political situation to gain financial advantage. Similarly, a non-Muslim spouse was entitled to reclaim what they had spent, even though they belonged to a community that had persecuted Muslims for years. This ruling ensured that neither side could use the breakdown of marriage as an excuse for injustice, manipulation, or revenge. This divine command also teaches that justice is not a favor Muslims extend to others, it is a duty they owe to Allah the Exalted. It reflects the higher moral standard that Islam demands, a standard where principles are not abandoned in moments of anger, fear, or conflict. It also shows that Islam does not allow oppression under the guise of religious loyalty. Even when dealing with adversaries, Muslims are required to uphold fairness, honor agreements, and respect the rights of others. This is why the early Muslim community became known for its integrity. Their justice was not selective, nor was it influenced by tribal loyalties or personal emotions. They treated others with fairness because they recognized that Allah the Exalted is the ultimate judge, and that every act of justice is an act of obedience to Him. Allah the Exalted further encourages the Muslim community to care for those who lost their non-Muslim spouses, supporting them in every way possible. This command highlights once again the importance of recognizing the difficulties others face and assisting them according to one's means. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 11.
And if you have lost any of your wives to the disbelievers, and you subsequently obtain something, then give those whose wives have gone the equivalent of what they had spent.
This ruling ensured that no individual was left to bear the emotional or financial burden of such a loss alone. For example, if a man's wife defected to the non-Muslims and he had spent wealth on her dowry or maintenance, the Muslim community was instructed to compensate him from any spoils or resources that later became available. This created a culture of mutual responsibility, where the community recognized that personal hardships, especially those caused by religious persecution, were not merely private matters but collective concerns. It also prevented resentment, financial injustice, and emotional isolation from taking root within the society. As Islam is a complete code of conduct, Allah the Exalted consistently connects worldly matters, such as marriage, divorce, inheritance, and financial disputes, to His obedience throughout the Holy Quran. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 11.
Then give those whose wives have gone the equivalent of what they had spent. And fear Allah, in whom you are believers.
This connection between worldly affairs and divine obedience teaches that Islam governs every aspect of life. No situation is too mundane or too personal to fall outside the scope of divine guidance. Whether one is dealing with marriage, business, family disputes, or community responsibilities, each matter must be approached with the consciousness that Allah the Exalted will question every action. For instance, a person may assume that only ritual acts, such as prayer, fasting, or charity, will be scrutinized, while their behavior in financial dealings, family matters, or social interactions is of lesser importance. This is a grave misunderstanding. Islam requires integrity in every circumstance, honesty in trade, fairness in marriage, kindness in speech, and justice in all dealings. When a person lives with this awareness, they naturally develop a harmonious mental and physical state, placing every blessing and every relationship in its proper place. They also prepare themselves adequately for their accountability on the Day of Judgment, ensuring tranquility in both worlds. It is therefore essential to avoid treating Islam like a garment that one puts on and removes according to personal desires. The one who behaves in this manner is not truly obeying Allah, the Exalted, but is instead worshipping their own desires, even if they outwardly claim otherwise. Chapter 25 Al-Furqan, verse 43.
Have you seen the one who takes as his God his own desire?
This verse describes the person who allows their whims to dictate their actions, practicing Islam only when it aligns with their preferences and abandoning it when it challenges their comfort. Such selective obedience leads to spiritual instability, moral confusion, and a life governed by impulse rather than principle. For example, a person may pray regularly yet engage in dishonesty in business, or they may fast in Ramadan yet mistreat their spouse or children. This inconsistency reveals that their true object of devotion is not Allah, the Exalted, but their own inclinations. The one who fails to act upon Islamic teachings in every situation will inevitably misuse the blessings they have been granted. As a result, they will find themselves in an unbalanced mental and physical condition, misplacing everything and everyone in their lives, and inadequately preparing for their responsibilities on the Day of Judgment. This leads to stress, challenges, and hardships in both worlds, even if they experience certain worldly luxuries. For example, a person who misuses wealth may appear successful outwardly, yet internally they suffer from anxiety, greed, and dissatisfaction. A person who misuses relationships may enjoy temporary companionship, yet their home becomes a place of conflict and emotional strain. A person who misuses time may enjoy leisure, yet they fail to cultivate purpose, discipline, or spiritual growth. In every case, neglecting divine guidance results in inner turmoil and outward instability. Only by aligning every aspect of life with Islamic teachings can a person attain true peace, clarity, and success in both this world and the next. After it was established that the female migrant believer had migrated for the correct reason, the pleasure of Allah, the Exalted, she was then asked to take a pledge outlining several fundamental duties of Islam. Most of these duties related to her conduct toward other people, thereby emphasizing that Islam extends far beyond the basic obligatory acts owed directly to Allah, the Exalted, such as the 5 daily prayers. This pledge served as a reminder that faith is not merely a private matter of worship, but a comprehensive way of life that governs one's behavior, relationships, and moral responsibilities. It ensured that new members of the community understood that Islam requires sincerity in belief and integrity in conduct, both in public and private life. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 12.
O Prophet, when the believing women come to you pledging to you that they will not associate anything with Allah,
it is essential to remember that false deities, such as idols, are not the only things a person might worship besides Allah, the Exalted. In reality, anything that a person obeys in opposition to Allah, the Exalted, such as social media trends, fashion, cultural expectations, or influential individuals, becomes in practice the object of their worship. Chapter 9 at Tawbah, verse 31.
They have taken their scholars and monks as lords besides Allah.
The scholars and monks of the people of the book were not worshipped through prostration or ritual devotion. Rather, they were obeyed in matters that contradicted the commands of Allah, the Exalted. This obedience was considered a form of worship because it elevated human authority above divine authority. The same principle is mentioned regarding the devil. Chapter 36 Yasin, verse 60.
Did I not enjoin upon you, O children of Adam, that you not worship Satan, for indeed he is to you a clear enemy?
The overwhelming majority of people have never bowed to Satan, yet they are accused of worshipping him because they obey him in disobedience to Allah, the Exalted. Thus, worship is not limited to rituals. It includes obedience, loyalty, and submission. If a person consistently follows influences that contradict divine guidance, whether celebrities, societal norms, or personal desires, they are, in effect, worshipping those influences. If someone persists in disobeying Allah, the Exalted, they will inevitably become subservient to other forces, such as individuals, social media, fashion, culture, or their employers. Attempting to satisfy multiple and unjust masters leads only to stress and exhaustion, as it is impossible to meet the ever-changing expectations of worldly influences. Just as an employee with several supervisors struggles to satisfy conflicting demands, those who turn away from the servitude of Allah, the Exalted, become overwhelmed by the pressures of pleasing people, trends, and desires. Over time, this internal conflict leads to sadness, isolation, depression, and even suicidal thoughts, as their efforts to gain approval from worldly masters fail to bring the fulfillment they seek. This reality is evident when observing those who have adopted this mindset, such as celebrities who appear outwardly successful, yet inwardly struggle with instability, addiction, and despair. Furthermore, worshipping other entities by obeying them in disobedience to Allah, the Exalted, will not benefit a person in the hereafter. These entities, whether people, trends, or desires, will not assist them when they stand before Allah, the Exalted. To avoid this outcome, one must abandon obedience to anything that leads to disobedience of Allah, the Exalted, and instead obey Him by using the blessings they have been granted in accordance with Islamic teachings. This ensures peace of mind in both worlds, by cultivating a balanced mental and physical state, and by placing everything and everyone in their proper place within one's life. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 12.
Nor will they steal.
Stealing in this context is not limited to physically taking someone's wealth. Rather, it includes every unlawful method of seizing the property or rights of another person, such as deception, fraud, bribery, manipulation, or even giving false testimony in legal cases in order to unjustly deprive someone of what rightfully belongs to them. Such actions are severe because they combine injustice with dishonesty, and they violate both divine commands and human rights. In a hadith recorded in Sahih Muslim, number 6579, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, warned about the reality of the truly bankrupt person. He explained that this person may come on Judgment Day with many righteous deeds, such as prayer, fasting, and charity. However, because they insulted others, slandered others, unlawfully consumed the wealth of others, shed blood, or struck people unjustly, their good deeds will be taken and distributed among their victims. If their good deeds are exhausted before justice is fulfilled, the sins of their victims will be transferred onto them. As a result, they will be hurled into hell. This powerful warning demonstrates that acts of worship alone are not sufficient for ultimate success. A person must fulfill both essential dimensions of faith. The first dimension consists of duties owed to Allah, the Exalted, such as the obligatory prayer, fasting, charity, and other acts of devotion. These acts strengthen the relationship between the servant and the Creator. The second dimension consists of fulfilling the rights of people. This includes protecting their wealth, honor, dignity, and physical safety, and treating them with fairness, kindness, and respect. In fact, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, declared in a hadith recorded in Sunan an-Nasai, number 4998, that a person cannot be considered complete in faith until others are safe from their physical and verbal harm, and until their property is protected from them, regardless of the religion those people follow. This teaching establishes that justice, safety, and ethical conduct apply universally, not selectively. It is also crucial to understand that Allah, the Exalted, is infinitely forgiving. He forgives those who sincerely repent to Him for sins that relate directly to His rights. However, sins that involve wrongdoing against other people are not forgiven merely through repentance alone. The victim must forgive the offender. Since human beings are often less forgiving than their Creator, a person should fear the possibility that those they have wronged may demand justice on Judgment Day by taking their good deeds. Therefore, even if someone fulfills the outward duties owed to Allah, the Exalted, they may still face severe consequences if they neglect or violate the rights of people. This reality should cause deep reflection. It is irrational for a person to dedicate years to prayer, fasting, and other righteous deeds, only to see those deeds transferred to others because of injustice, harshness, or dishonesty. True success lies in balance. A person must strive to increase righteous deeds, while simultaneously minimizing sins by carefully fulfilling the rights of Allah, the Exalted, and the rights of people. Only through this comprehensive obedience, in accordance with the teachings of Islam, can a person hope to attain safety and lasting success on Judgment Day. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 12.
nor will they commit unlawful sexual intercourse.
Allah, the Exalted, encourages marriage and forbids unlawful relationships because His guidance safeguards emotional stability, moral integrity, and social cohesion. Marriage establishes a clear, mutual, and long-term commitment, in which both individuals enter with the same understanding of devotion, responsibility, and shared purpose. When two people are not truly committed to one another in a binding and principled manner, difficulties often intensify emotional strain rather than strengthen mutual support. In casual or temporary relationships, partners are frequently not aligned in their expectations. One may desire permanence and stability, while the other may seek only temporary companionship. When this imbalance eventually becomes evident, it can cause deep and lasting emotional harm, particularly to the one who was more invested. Repeatedly entering and leaving relationships can also destabilize a person's emotional well-being. Attachment followed by separation places strain on the mind and heart, and unresolved emotional wounds may accumulate over time. It is widely observed that relationship breakdowns are among the major causes of anxiety, depression, and the need for counseling. In contrast, a marriage founded upon commitment, responsibility, and shared moral values provides a structured environment in which challenges are approached with perseverance rather than abandonment. Marriage begins with clarity of intention. From the outset, both spouses recognize the seriousness of their covenant and the responsibilities it entails, including unforeseen circumstances such as financial strain or raising children. This shared understanding fosters resilience. By comparison, relationships lacking formal commitment often dissolve over comparatively minor disagreements because the foundation of lifelong dedication is absent. It is also common for individuals who engage in multiple relationships to develop patterns of comparison, mistrust, or emotional detachment. Such habits can make it more difficult to form the depth of trust and loyalty required for a stable marriage. Furthermore, societal perceptions may affect future prospects, as many seeking a lifelong spouse prioritize consistency, reliability, and strong character. Another frequent misconception arises when couples believe they fully know one another before marriage. When responsibilities increase after marriage, they may mistakenly assume their spouse has changed. In reality, it is often the weight of new duties and pressures that reveal previously unseen aspects of personality. Without a firm foundation of commitment and patience, this adjustment period can create marital strain. Relationship turmoil also affects broader areas of life. Emotional distress can impair concentration, productivity, and long-term goals. For some young people, the breakdown of a relationship severely disrupts education or personal development. Marriage, by contrast, is designed as a comprehensive and stabilizing bond. Because it is rooted in accountability before Allah, the Exalted, and structured around rights and responsibilities, spouses are generally more inclined to resolve conflicts with patience and maturity. The depth of commitment reduces the likelihood of separation over trivial matters, and encourages both individuals to grow together rather than apart. In this way, divine guidance concerning marriage is not restrictive but protective. It seeks to preserve emotional health, strengthen families, and cultivate a balanced and stable society, ensuring well-being in this life and preparation for accountability in the hereafter. Furthermore, it is widely observed that those who pursue partners outside marriage through dating frequently endure emotional strain, including stress, disappointment, and despair. Entering the dating environment often becomes an emotional cycle in which hopes are repeatedly raised and then shattered. When meeting someone new, a person may develop expectations that this individual will become a suitable long-term partner. Yet people commonly present an idealized version of themselves in the early stages, concealing weaknesses or undesirable traits. When those traits later surface, expectations collapse and the emotional impact can be significant. Repeating this cycle multiple times can gradually erode optimism and emotional stability, leading some to lose hope in ever finding a suitable spouse. In contrast, when individuals search for a spouse within the framework of marriage, both parties generally recognize from the outset that they are considering a lifelong and serious commitment. This awareness often encourages greater honesty and transparency, as neither benefits from sustaining a false image that cannot endure within marriage. The seriousness of the intention tends to reduce unnecessary emotional experimentation and fosters clarity of purpose. Societal pressure also plays a powerful role. Many people feel compelled to enter relationships simply to avoid being perceived as unusual or left behind. This pressure can lead to rushed decisions and unsuitable choices, producing further emotional distress when the relationship fails. While marriage also involves social expectations, its recognized gravity often causes families and individuals to approach it more thoughtfully. Many understand that careful consideration is necessary before entering a lifelong covenant, which can lessen impulsive pressure. Moreover, marriage can reasonably be delayed until personal readiness, such as completing education or achieving stability, thereby easing certain forms of stress. By contrast, social pressure to date often begins in adolescence and persists without pause, encouraging continual comparison and urgency. This sustained pressure does not have the same structured safeguards as marriage and can contribute to ongoing emotional instability. For these reasons, the guidance of Allah, the Exalted, in encouraging marriage and prohibiting unlawful relationships serves as protection rather than restriction. It aims to shield individuals from cycles of emotional upheaval, promote sincerity and stability, and cultivate relationships built upon responsibility, honesty, and long-term commitment, thereby safeguarding mental well-being in this life and preparing a person for accountability in the hereafter. In addition, a person should not be deceived by the outward appearance of an unlawful relationship, assuming that it is harmless for the couple or for society. Human understanding is limited, perspectives are often short-sighted, and emotions can dominate judgment. Because of this, individuals may perceive no immediate harm, while remaining unaware of long-term spiritual, emotional, and social consequences. What appears attractive and harmless at the surface may conceal serious harm beneath it. When a person places themselves in an unlawful relationship, emotional attachment naturally deepens over time. Strong feelings can gradually weaken restraint and make further wrongdoing more likely, especially in environments where immoral behavior has become normalized. Even if certain major sins are initially avoided, the constant emotional attachment can cloud judgment. Decisions about marriage may then be based primarily on attachment, rather than careful evaluation of character, compatibility, and long-term responsibility. It is important to recognize that being a pleasant partner in a casual setting does not automatically mean being a suitable spouse or parent. Marriage introduces responsibilities, pressures, and obligations that differ greatly from those experienced in informal relationships. Qualities such as patience, self-restraint, responsibility, and sincere fear of Allah, the Exalted, are essential for fulfilling the rights of a spouse and children. A person lacking piety may behave kindly when calm, yet fail to uphold justice and mercy during moments of anger. For this reason, spiritual character is more important than emotional attraction when choosing a spouse. Strong emotions can make a person overlook serious flaws, as love often blinds one to shortcomings. Furthermore, character tends to attract similar character. A person who adopts an immodest or careless lifestyle may attract others with similar traits. Relationships formed on superficial attraction or desire often lack deep respect and loyalty. When difficulties arise, such individuals may resort to verbal abuse, humiliation, or comparison, leaving emotional wounds that can persist for years. Emotional abuse, though invisible, can deeply scar a person's mental well-being. Instability rooted in impiety also increases the likelihood of betrayal. When attraction is based primarily on outward qualities, those qualities may lose their appeal over time. Without moral restraint and accountability before Allah, the Exalted, some may seek new attractions rather than uphold their commitments. This behavior not only harms spouses but also deeply affects children, who may suffer confusion, insecurity, or emotional distress as a result of instability within the home. By contrast, modesty and piety tend to attract individuals who value respect, responsibility, and long-term commitment. In such relationships, rights are more likely to be fulfilled, and disagreements are handled with dignity rather than humiliation. Even when harsh words are spoken in moments of weakness, Established character and reputation help prevent lasting suspicion or disgrace. Children raised in such environments are more likely to develop respect for their parents and internalize stable moral values. For these reasons, divine guidance concerning chastity and lawful marriage is protective in nature. It aims to preserve clarity of judgment, safeguard emotional health, protect families from instability, and ensure that relationships are founded upon piety, responsibility, and accountability. Through adherence to this guidance, individuals protect themselves and their society from hidden harm and prepare for their accountability in the hereafter. In addition, when a child is born unintentionally within an unlawful relationship, the emotional and practical strain often intensifies. If the relationship was not founded upon long-term commitment and shared responsibility, the sudden reality of parenthood can overwhelm both individuals. In many cases, this pressure leads to separation, as one or both parties may not wish to shoulder the lifelong duties of raising a child. A child raised in a fractured home may grow up without the balanced support, supervision, and emotional stability that ideally come from the consistent presence of both parents. While every situation differs, and many single parents strive heroically to provide stability, the absence of harmony and cooperation between parents can create challenges in upbringing. Raising a child with preparation, intention, and shared commitment is already demanding. When parenthood was never desired or planned, the emotional burden can become even heavier, potentially affecting patience, consistency, and long-term nurturing. In some cases, overwhelming stress may lead to fostering or adoption. Although there are situations where alternative care provides safety and opportunity, instability in early family life can leave lasting emotional effects. These experiences may increase vulnerability to harmful influences, confusion about identity, or difficulty forming secure attachments later in life. Many of these consequences are not immediately visible at the outset of an unlawful relationship. Emotional attachment and desire can obscure long-term outcomes. What appears harmless in the present may conceal serious harm in the future. This reality resembles consuming a meal that appears appealing, but contains hidden poison. Because the harm is not instantly visible, a person must rely on the guidance of one who possesses complete knowledge of the seen and unseen. Allah the Exalted alone has perfect and comprehensive knowledge of human nature, its strengths, weaknesses, and long-term needs. His commands are not arbitrary restrictions, but protective measures designed to secure individual stability and social well-being. Accepting divine guidance, even when it conflicts with personal desire, resembles the conduct of a wise patient who follows the advice of a skilled physician. Though the prescribed treatment may be difficult or contrary to immediate cravings, it ultimately preserves health and prevents greater suffering. Human research and societal experience, despite their benefits, remain limited. They cannot anticipate every circumstance or eliminate every source of stress, as human knowledge is partial and constantly evolving. Only Allah, the Exalted, possesses the complete understanding necessary to provide a framework that ensures true balance between mental and physical well-being. This comprehensive guidance has been granted through the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. When one compares those who sincerely implement this guidance, using their blessings responsibly and within lawful boundaries, with those who disregard it, the difference in stability, clarity, and long-term peace becomes evident. Divine instruction, therefore, serves not to burden humanity, but to protect, stabilize, and guide it toward well-being in this life and success in the hereafter. Allah, the Exalted, removed numerous secondary and branch problems by addressing their root cause, the regulation of intimate relationships through the prohibition of unlawful relationships and the encouragement of marriage. By establishing marriage as a sincere covenant of devotion between spouses and a foundation for responsible parenthood, He provided a structured system that protects individuals, children, and society at large. Through addressing marriage, divorce, the care of widows, and the rights of children in the Holy Quran, Allah, the Exalted, granted humanity a comprehensive framework for building a stable and just society. When family members, whether united in marriage or separated through divorce, fulfill one another's rights with fairness and dignity, they create a secure and nurturing environment for children. A stable home cultivates emotional balance, moral clarity, and social responsibility in the next generation. This, in turn, produces a positive ripple effect that extends throughout the wider community. Conversely, when family members neglect their duties, violate rights, or allow injustice and resentment to dominate the household, instability spreads beyond the home. Emotional distress, unresolved conflict, and moral confusion often extend into schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods. Thus, the condition of the family directly influences the condition of society. Throughout history, many thinkers and reformers have attempted to resolve social problems by targeting visible symptoms, such as crime, inequality, or psychological distress. While such efforts may offer partial relief, they often fail to address the foundational structure from which many societal issues arise, the stability and moral integrity of the family unit. Solutions that focus only on branch problems naturally yield limited and temporary benefit. In contrast, Allah the Exalted, through divine wisdom, addressed the roots of individual and social well-being. By clearly defining rights, responsibilities, and moral boundaries within family life, He clarified the path to harmony and long-term stability. When this guidance is implemented sincerely, it nurtures balanced individuals, strong families, and cohesive communities, thereby enabling people to attain success in this world and eternal success in the hereafter. Chapter 16 An-Nahl, verse 89.
And we have sent down to you the book as clarification for all things, and as guidance and mercy.
However, only those who use the intelligence they have been granted in a sincere and unbiased manner will truly appreciate the profound wisdom contained within the verses of Allah the Exalted. Chapter 2 Al-Baqarah, verse 242.
Thus does Allah make clear to you His verses that you might use reason.
In the Holy Quran, murder and fornication are mentioned side by side, as murder destroys the human body while fornication destroys the human soul. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 12.
Nor will they commit unlawful sexual intercourse, nor will they kill their children.
The pairing of these two prohibitions may also serve as a warning against harming children born from unlawful relationships. The child is innocent, the sin belongs to the parents. Yet throughout history, societies have often mistreated or abandoned children born outside of marriage, even though they bear no responsibility for the circumstances of their birth. Islam rejects such injustice and emphasizes that every child, regardless of their parents' actions, has inherent dignity and rights. In addition, this verse includes the prohibition of killing one's children out of fear of poverty, an act explicitly condemned elsewhere in the Holy Quran. Chapter 17 Al-Isra, verse 31.
And do not kill your children for fear of poverty.
Even though the means of provision come through people, such as parents, employers, or society, the true source of provision is always Allah, the Exalted. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, taught that the provision of every created being was decreed 50,000 years before the creation of the heavens and the earth. This is confirmed in a hadith found in Sahih Muslim, number 6748. Chapter 17 Al-Isra, verse 31.
We provide for them and for you. Indeed, their killing is ever a great sin.
In general, it is crucial to recognize that every situation, especially matters related to provision, has two components. The first component is what Allah, the Exalted, has predetermined. This refers to destiny. It will occur exactly as decreed, and nothing in existence can alter it. Since this aspect is beyond human control, worrying about it is pointless. A person cannot influence destiny through anxiety, fear, or excessive planning. Moreover, the provision decreed by Allah, the Exalted, includes the minimum required for survival. As long as a person is alive, they will receive this provision, and nothing, not even their own mistakes, can prevent them from accessing what Allah has already written for them. The second component relates to a person's own efforts. This is the area in which human beings have full responsibility. They must utilize their abilities, such as physical strength, skills, and opportunities, to obey Allah, the Exalted. This includes fulfilling His commands, avoiding His prohibitions, and responding to destiny with patience and trust. It also includes seeking lawful provision to support themselves and their dependents, while avoiding unlawful earnings, extravagance, waste, and greed. For example, a person must work diligently, manage their finances responsibly, and avoid harmful habits such as gambling or interest-based transactions. They must also avoid laziness, as neglecting effort is a form of ingratitude toward the blessings Allah, the Exalted, has provided. In conclusion, one should not waste time worrying about matters beyond their control. Instead, they should focus on what they can influence and act accordingly, following the teachings of Islam. A person must avoid extreme attitudes, neither relying solely on destiny while neglecting effort, nor relying solely on effort while ignoring destiny. The correct path is to work for lawful income in accordance with Islamic principles, while trusting in Allah, the Exalted. This trust prevents impatience, despair, and the temptation to seek wealth through unlawful means or to harm others, such as one's own children, out of fear of poverty. By balancing effort with trust, a person achieves peace of mind in both worlds, maintains a healthy mental and physical state, and prepares themselves for their accountability on the Day of Judgment. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 12.
Nor will they kill their children.
This prohibition includes killing baby girls, a common custom among the Arabs prior to the coming of Islam, as they regarded daughters as a source of shame and social humiliation. Chapter 16 An-Nahl, verses 58 to 59.
And when one of them is informed of the birth of a female, his face becomes dark and he suppresses grief. He hides himself from the people, because of the ill of which he has been informed. Should he keep it in humiliation, or bury it in the ground? Unquestionably, evil is what they decide.
These verses vividly portray the emotional, psychological, and social ugliness of this pre-Islamic practice. This is one of the most severe condemnations found in the Holy Quran, as Allah, the Exalted, describes not only the outward crime but the inward emotions, facial expressions, and physical behavior of the one who commits it. No other sinful attitude is dissected with such detail, demonstrating the gravity of this mindset. Despite the fact that disliking daughters has been criticized to this extent, many Muslims today have sadly adopted the same attitude as the idol worshippers of Arabia who despise the birth of girls. The first point to note is that Allah, the Exalted, refers to the birth of a daughter as good news in these verses, yet some Muslims react with disappointment, frustration, or even shame. Furthermore, Allah, the Exalted, associates this negative attitude with those who worship lifeless idols. A Muslim who behaves in this manner should therefore feel ashamed of themselves and repent from such a foolish and spiritually dangerous mindset. One must appreciate the severity of the criticism in these verses. Allah, the Exalted, condemns the emotional reaction, the facial expression, the attempt to hide from society, and the internal deliberation of the one who dislikes having daughters. This level of condemnation is unparalleled in Islamic teachings. In addition, Islam mentions the blessings and rewards of raising daughters more frequently than those of raising sons. For example, in a hadith recorded in Imam Bukhari's Adab al-Mufrad, number 78, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, conveyed glad tidings of paradise to parents who properly raise 2 daughters. In other narrations, even raising one daughter with kindness and patience is described as a shield from hellfire. It is understandable that a parent may worry more about a daughter than a son, especially in today's society where moral challenges, social pressures, and safety concerns are widespread. However, this natural concern should never translate into disappointment or resentment. A Muslim parent must remember that their responsibility is to educate, guide, and nurture their children according to Islamic teachings, not to worry excessively about their future, which lies entirely in the hands of Allah, the Exalted. The fate, provision, safety, and success of every child, male or female, are matters decreed by Allah, the Exalted, long before their birth. Therefore, one must refrain from adopting a negative mindset regarding daughters and instead find contentment with whatever child they are blessed with. Many married couples long for children yet remain childless, and many parents who once wished for sons later realize that their daughters became the greatest source of comfort, loyalty, and support in their old age. Daughters often show more compassion, emotional intelligence, and dedication to their parents than sons, and countless families testify that their daughters became the light of their homes. A believer should therefore welcome every child with gratitude, recognizing that Allah, the Exalted, grants children as a trust, a blessing, and a means of spiritual elevation. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 12.
Nor will they commit unlawful sexual intercourse, nor will they kill their children, nor will they bring forth a slander they have invented between their arms and legs.
The placement of this statement within the verse carries profound meaning. Since the mention of slander follows immediately after the prohibition of unlawful sexual relations, it includes false claims relating to lineage and parenthood. This may involve falsely attributing a child to someone who is not the true parent, such as claiming that a husband is the father of a child conceived through wrongdoing, or falsely accusing another person in order to damage or destroy a marriage or family relationship. Such slander is extremely serious because it does not merely harm an individual's reputation. It undermines trust, corrupts family bonds, and creates long-lasting social and emotional harm. Lineage determines responsibilities, inheritance, identity, and mutual rights within a family. Therefore, falsely manipulating these matters represents an attack on one of the most sacred foundations of human society. Throughout the teachings of Islam, Allah, the Exalted, establishes numerous practical safeguards designed to protect the family unit. The family serves as the primary environment in which moral values, emotional security, compassion, and responsibility are cultivated. When families remain stable and trustworthy, society as a whole becomes safer and more peaceful. Conversely, when trust within families is destroyed through betrayal, false accusations, or immoral conduct, wider social corruption inevitably follows. For this reason, Islam strongly prohibits actions that threaten marital trust, lineage, or personal honor. The prohibition of unlawful sexual relations protects family stability, while the prohibition of slander protects dignity and certainty regarding parentage. Together, these commands demonstrate that divine guidance does not address spirituality alone, but also preserves social harmony and justice in practical human relationships. Thus, this verse highlights that safeguarding truthfulness, chastity, and honesty within family life is essential for maintaining a just and peaceful society, as intended by Allah, the Exalted. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 12.
Nor will they disobey you in what is right.
Although the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, commanded only what was righteous and prohibited only what was evil, the instruction regarding obedience to authority extends beyond his blessed leadership to all leaders who govern society after him. Unlike the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, later leaders are not divinely guided and may therefore make errors in judgment or even command matters that are harmful, whether intentionally or unintentionally. For this reason, Islamic teachings establish principled obedience, not unconditional obedience. In general, cooperating with and obeying societal leaders in matters that promote goodness, justice, and public welfare is an essential foundation for maintaining peace and social stability. Order within society cannot exist if lawful authority is constantly undermined. When people support beneficial leadership, communities are protected from chaos, conflict, and injustice. A hadith recorded in Sahih Muslim, number 196, explains that sincerity toward leaders forms an important aspect of Islam. Sincerity in this context includes wishing good for them, offering sincere and respectful advice, correcting mistakes with wisdom, and supporting their righteous decisions through lawful means, including personal effort, cooperation, or material assistance when required. Leadership improves when sincere counsel replaces hostility or deception. Likewise, a hadith recorded in Muwatta Imam Malik, Book 56, Hadith 20, indicates that fulfilling this responsibility earns the pleasure of Allah, the Exalted, because it contributes to justice, unity, and social harmony. Chapter 4 An-Nisa, verse 59.
O you who have believed, obey Allah and obey the Messenger and those in authority among you.
This verse establishes obedience to legitimate authority as a duty. However, the structure of the command also clarifies an important limitation. Obedience to leaders is required only so long as it does not involve disobedience to Allah, the Exalted. A foundational principle in Islam is that there is no obedience to creation when such obedience requires disobedience to the Creator. When leaders act incorrectly, Islamic teachings discourage rebellion and violent revolt, as such actions frequently result in widespread instability and harm to innocent people. Instead, the correct approach is patient reform through gentle advice, encouragement toward righteousness, and discouragement of wrongdoing in a wise and constructive manner consistent with the teachings of Islam. Alongside this, people are encouraged to pray for their leaders, asking Allah, the Exalted, to guide them toward justice and upright conduct. The moral condition of leadership often influences the condition of society as a whole. When leaders remain upright, communities are more likely to remain upright as well. Deceit or betrayal toward leaders is strongly condemned and described as a sign of hypocrisy, because it damages trust and weakens social unity. True sincerity includes supporting policies that unite society upon goodness, while warning against actions that create division, injustice, or disorder. Thus, Islam does not promote blind loyalty to leaders. Rather, it establishes balanced obedience, cooperation in righteousness, sincere counsel in times of error, and steadfast commitment to what pleases Allah, the Exalted. Through this balanced approach, justice, stability, and collective well-being can be preserved within society. After discussing some important conditions of Islam, Allah, the Exalted, then makes it clear that He does not demand nor expect perfection from people. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 12.
Then accept their pledge, and ask forgiveness for them of Allah.
What Allah, the Exalted, expects is not a life free from shortcomings, but a life marked by sincere effort, using the blessings He has granted in accordance with Islamic teachings, striving to obey Him to the best of one's ability, and turning back to Him whenever a sin is committed. The true danger lies not in falling into error, but in persisting in it without remorse or repentance. When a person adopts this attitude of sincere striving and regular repentance, Allah, the Exalted, promises forgiveness, mercy, and inner tranquility. Such individuals experience peace of mind in this world and hope for salvation in the next, because they live with awareness, humility, and a heart that continually returns to its Lord. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 12.
Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful.
This chapter of the Holy Quran ends exactly where it began, returning to the theme of avoiding harmful companionship, because corrupt influences are among the greatest causes of misguidance. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 13.
O you who have believed, do not make allies of a people with whom Allah has become angry.
This closing command mirrors the opening verses of the chapter, forming a complete circle of guidance. It reminds one that the people they choose to draw close to will inevitably shape their beliefs, priorities, and behavior. It is therefore essential to distinguish between healthy social conduct, which Islam encourages with all people, and deep friendship, which carries emotional influence and moral weight. A deep friendship always affects a person, even if they do not consciously realize it. Love, admiration, and loyalty can lead one to compromise their faith in order to please their companion, whereas good social conduct, kindness, fairness, and respectful interaction never reaches this level of influence. For this reason, Muslims are commanded to show good character toward everyone, but to reserve intimate companionship for those who will encourage them toward the sincere obedience of Allah, the Exalted. Only a Muslim can fulfill this role for another Muslim, because only a Muslim shares the same worldview, moral framework, and ultimate purpose. A non-Muslim, even unintentionally, will encourage a Muslim to disobey Allah, the Exalted, simply because they live by a different code of conduct. What is acceptable to them may be impermissible in Islam. Their worldview does not include the same understanding of accountability on the Day of Judgment, or it is based on beliefs that contradict Islamic teachings. This inevitably affects their behavior, and by extension, the behavior of those who befriend them. Chapter 60 Al-Mumtahanah, verse 13.
They have despaired of the hereafter, just as the disbelievers have despaired of the inhabitants of the graves.
This verse highlights that those who do not believe in the hereafter, or who hold false beliefs about it, live without the moral restraint, spiritual awareness, or long-term vision that belief in accountability creates. Their despair regarding the hereafter influences their choices, and this influence spreads to those who take them as close companions. Human beings, by their very nature, are social creatures whose beliefs, habits, and character are shaped by the people around them. This influence may appear instantly, or it may develop gradually and subtly, but it always leaves a mark. Companionship is never neutral. It is a powerful force that molds one's values, emotions, and destiny. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, affirmed this universal truth in a hadith found in Sunan Abu Dawood, number 4833, which highlights the profound effect that one's companions have on their spiritual and moral state. A person inevitably absorbs the attitudes, outlook, and conduct of those they spend time with, just as one who enters a perfume shop carries away its fragrance, while one who visits a blacksmith is tainted by its smoke. For this reason, those who keep the company of the righteous and sincere will find their hearts naturally drawn towards sincerity, humility, and obedience to Allah, the Exalted. Their companions will remind them of their responsibilities, encourage the proper use of the blessings bestowed upon them, and inspire them to prepare for their accountability on the Day of Judgment. In such company, one's heart is uplifted, their intentions purified, and their conduct refined. They learn balance, mentally, spiritually, and physically, and are guided toward a life of contentment and purpose. They also develop resilience, because righteous companions help them navigate hardship with patience and wisdom, rather than impulsiveness or despair. Conversely, those who associate with the heedless and misguided inevitably begin to mirror their attitudes and behavior. The process may begin imperceptibly, but over time it erodes one's spiritual awareness and weakens their connection with Allah, the Exalted. Such individuals become prone to following their desires, misusing the blessings granted to them, and neglecting their ultimate purpose. This corruption of the soul distorts their perception of right and wrong, causing them to misplace priorities, misuse relationships, and lose harmony in their lives. When a person replaces the obedience of Allah, the Exalted, with the pursuit of fleeting pleasures and misguided ideals, their heart becomes restless. No amount of material comfort can fill the void that results from spiritual neglect. Though they may outwardly appear successful or content, inwardly they suffer from anxiety, instability, and dissatisfaction. Their relationships become strained, their minds unsettled, and their hearts weighed down by guilt and regret. Thus, the consequences of poor companionship extend beyond this world. They lead to confusion and despair in this life, and spiritual ruin in the next. In contrast, righteous companionship nurtures inner peace, strengthens faith, and prepares one for eternal success. For this reason, a wise person is always selective in their friendships, seeking the company of those who remind them of Allah, the Exalted, and whose character motivates them to walk the path of truth and virtue. In conclusion, a person must accept and act upon the teachings of Islam for their own benefit, even when these teachings oppose personal desires or temporary worldly inclinations. True wisdom lies in recognizing that human desire does not always align with what is beneficial. A useful comparison is that of a wise patient who faithfully follows the guidance of a skilled doctor. Such a patient accepts bitter medicine and a disciplined diet, not because they are pleasant, but because they lead to recovery and long-term well-being. In the same manner, the person who sincerely accepts and implements Islamic teachings ultimately attains balance and well-being in both mental and physical life. This is because the one who created humanity possesses complete knowledge of human nature. Allah the Exalted alone knows what brings harmony to a person's thoughts, emotions, relationships, and actions, and He alone knows how every aspect of life should be correctly prioritized and balanced. Human societies, despite extensive research and intellectual advancement, possess limited knowledge. Their understanding remains restricted by changing theories, personal bias, incomplete experience, and lack of foresight. While human efforts may address certain difficulties, they cannot eliminate every form of hardship, prevent all emotional distress, or provide universal guidance suitable for every circumstance a person may encounter. Nor can human systems perfectly determine how a person should balance responsibilities, relationships, and personal ambitions throughout life. Allah the Exalted, however, possesses perfect and complete knowledge. Out of mercy, He has granted guidance through the Holy Quran and through the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Through these sources, humanity is shown a comprehensive way of life designed to nurture spiritual stability, moral clarity, and social harmony. The truth of this guidance becomes evident when one compares those who use their blessings according to Islamic teachings with those who misuse them, often leading to imbalance and dissatisfaction despite material success. Unlike the patient who may follow medical advice without understanding the scientific details behind prescribed treatment, Allah, the Exalted, does not call people toward blind acceptance. Rather, He invites reflection, understanding, and thoughtful recognition of truth. People are encouraged to observe the wisdom and positive outcomes, a divine guidance within their own lives and within society. Allah, the Exalted, wishes individuals to recognize truth through clear evidence and reflection, which requires approaching Islamic teachings with sincerity, openness, and freedom from prejudice. Chapter 12 Yusuf, verse 108.
Say, this is my way, I invite to Allah with insight, I and those who follow me.
Furthermore, peace of mind ultimately rests within the control of Allah, the Exalted, alone. The spiritual heart, the true abode of tranquility and emotional stability, remains under His authority. Chapter 53 and Najm, verse 43.
And that it is He who makes one laugh and weep.
Therefore, genuine peace of mind is not accidental nor purely psychological. Rather, it is a divine gift granted to those who align their lives with the guidance provided by Allah, the Exalted. Through sincere obedience, reflection, and correct use of divine blessings, a person moves toward the abode of inner peace and lasting success. Chapter 16 and Nahl, verse 97.
Whoever does righteousness, whether male or female, while he is a believer, we will surely cause him to live a good life, and we will surely give them their reward in the hereafter according to the best of what they used to do.
All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, and may peace and blessings be upon His final messenger, Muhammad, his noble family and companions.